Hello everyone. In this video we're going to continue where we left in the last video. So we have all the values that we need to validate that our edit is happening in the relevant sheet and in the relevant columns to set the drop down. We don't want to set drop downs when edits are happening in any of these sheets. We don't want to set drop downs when edit is happening anywhere here. We only want to set drop downs when the edit happens in this column. Then we want to set a drop down here, and we want to set a drop down here if the edit happens in this column. That's all. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we are going to create two conditions. One condition is to basically check the sheet, or check whether we are on the correct, or check whether the edit occurred in the correct sheet. And after that we want to do two things. One, if the edit happens in the second row, second column. So basically if the edit happens in this column and if the edit happens in this column. And the second thing will be if the edit happens in the third column. I guess this is it, yeah, in the third column. Okay, great. Let's start. So first thing that we want to do is check the event sheet, and as we know that we are storing name in the event sheet, so we want to check the name, and if the name is the same as this, so we'll paste it here. Now in this, the first thing that we want to do is if the edit happens in the second column. So if event column equals 2, then I want to do something. Okay, so first thing first that we want to do is get drop downs values. Okay, then let's do that. So variable, and let's first get range, drop down range, and basically the all the values that exist in this sheet. So drop downs range, and what we're going to do is use the drop downs sheet that we stored here, and we're gonna use get data range, and we'll get the whole data, drop down data, entire drop down data we'll store in this. So we'll use drop down range dot get values, and we are going to store this here. So let's see whether this thing is running fine or not. So let's make a change in the second column because our code will only run when the change is in the second column. So logger.log and drop down data. Let's see whether we are fine so far. Let's make an edit in this column and wait for the execution. Okay. Great. So we're getting all the values from here, from this. Perfect. So this is working so far. Let's close this. Okay. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we want to get the header row. So our header row is this row right? So if we look here, we got the values as lists of lists, and each list is a row, right? So this is one row, then this is second row, like that. So we want in this list, we want the 0th item, which is our header row, right? Also because in an array, your item starts from 0, the index. So this is the 0th item, then there'll be first items, and within this list, so this is one list, and this is the 0th item, first item, second item. So total items are all of this. So let's see how many total items are there in this list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 total items, and we'll have 0 to 7 index. I hope that's clear. Okay, so let's get our header row. And header row is our drop down data and the 0th item. So this is our header row and the column of interest. So basically the column of interest is going to be, if I select primary here, then the column of interest is going to be primary. If I select secondary here from this drop down, then my column of interest is going to be the column where secondary is the header value, right? So let's get variable column of interest, and the column of interest is going to be drop down, header row, and in this header row I want to get the index of my event value, right? Event value, because if I select primary here, then my event value is going to be primary, and I want to look up primary here and then select that column. So the index of that is going to be my column, or not. Let's see. What do we get? Column of interest. So basically, if I select here secondary, then my column of interest would be 2. Let's see. Is it 2? It's 1. Yes, of course, because we start from 0 and then 1. So we have to add 1 to this. So we'll add 1. And now if we select secondary, we'll get 2. Let's collapse this and refresh. Now it is 2. Great. So now we have our column of interest as well. And from that interest, we want our drop down values. So we'll save that in here, drop down values. And my drop down values will be, so in the drop down sheet, I want to get a range, and my range is going to be header row plus 1, right? Because I want to start from the next row. So if this is my header row, plus 1 is going to be my row from where I want to start looking up the data, right? So let's first look at this get data range. So in this, we can see that if you focus here, then you have 4 different ways you can use this method. So in the first one, it says that you provide an integer and a column reference. Here, it says that you can provide an integer row, which row to start from, which column to start from, and till which row to go, right? And if you click here, then till how many columns do you want to keep going and get the range. So we want to start from our header row plus 1. We want to get our column of interest. How many rows do we want to go? So we want to go all the way, like the last value or the last row that is there in our sheet. So what I will do is I'll do drop downs dot get last row. So it will just pick the last row which has data, basically this, which is fine because it doesn't matter uh, like we have data till here, because the drop downs only pick unique values, right? It doesn't pick empty values. So like even if you said drop down from the sheet itself, right, uh, it doesn't pick empty values. Okay, so get last row. So I want to get the values till last row, and I want to get the values till which column. I only want the values for one column, so I will just write 1 over here, and then I want to get the values, so dot get values. So now we have the values. Now let's see whether this is populating correctly or not. So when we select primary, I want these three to be the options. So let's do that. Select primary. Sorry, it failed. Okay, let's see what happened over here. So it says cannot convert primary, secondary, something something to integer in set dynamic drop down code. 26th line, 26th drop down values. Okay, what does it say? Set dynamic drop down code 6. Okay, integer 6. Ah, my bad, my bad. This header row is not an integer, right? Header row is a list. So the integer is basically our um, variable, and let's just store this in here because we always know that we want to start from the uh, second row, right? We don't want to start from the first row, we want to start from the second row. So let's just save it here in a variable called row to start. So I want to start from the second row, and I can change this here to row to start. Okay, now let's see. Yeah, if I select secondary, I should get these values. Let's come here. Okay, it runs fine now. Refresh. See, we got these values. And this, like I said, perfectly fine, because when you set a drop down, it does not pick these things. It's not like you will get empty values in your drop downs, right? But if you want to get rid of this, then you can basically loop over all of this list and then see which of the lists are empty and then pop them out. But anyway, that will increase the time needed to run this code, because now you are using another loop to iterate through this list and check and then popping out stuff. So that's why, like, it's fine. So you can leave it like that. Now what we want to do is we want to set that drop down. Where do we want to set that drop down? In our data sheet. So we want to set these values as drop down in our data sheet. And where do we want to set the drop down in our data sheet? So let's get the range where we want to set this as drop down. So we want to set this in here because we made the change here. So if we make the change here, the drop down should occur here. right? So that means I want the event row and event column plus 1, right? So event row, event column plus 1. This is where I want to set the validation. Okay, now there is a method called set data validation, and let's read about this. It says that set validation takes an argument called rule. Now, where is this rule coming from? So the thing is that this rule is something that we will have to build. So you can see that it says you create a rule, and then after that you set that rule, you pass this rule inside this method set data validation as an argument, and this rule will be passed in there, right? So that means we need to first create a rule. So let's do this set data validation, and let's pass in an argument rule. And as we have not created it so far, there is nothing like rule that exists so far, so this will give us an error, but we'll just create it now. So we'll create rule which we are passing here after that. Yep. Okay. So to create the rule, what we are going to do is we are going to call our spreadsheet app class. We will create a new data validation, and in this new data validation, and just to keep this clean, I'm going to basically you can start after this as well, like but I'm going to start in the new line dot require, let's see, require, okay, because we want the validation to be set in a way that there is a value that is required from a list of values, right? So basically we are looking for something required from list. Let's see, require value in list. Yeah, so require value in list, and from in which list, in the drop down values. Then we want to build this rule now, and now this should work fine. Let's select primary over here, and let's see whether this runs or fails. Or it ran. Nice. So our code is correct. Takes a lot of time. Okay, so it read the correct values because it selected primary, so it selected all the primary, the correct column to pick the values from, and you can see that there is a drop down also set here, right? And if you select secondary, all the secondary should set here. So let's wait for it to appear. Now you can see that it is here, all the secondary. Now if I click here, I want a value to be set over here as well, but it's not setting anything here because we are only running the code when event column is equal to 2. Now the second thing is we can do a second else if, and if our event column is equal to 3, then I want to do basically all of this thing again, right? And because it ran for this, it will also run for this. So let's select primary over here and see we have a drop down for all A primary. Let's select secondary over here Let's select C secondary and we should get the schools for all C secondary over here. C secondary. Nice. If we select okay, if we select A secondary, then it's still showing C secondary, but if we wait for a second, because it takes time, right? Now you can see that it is set. So if you wait for a second, it will refresh the or set a new validation rule over this in this cell. A secondary, we should get some values over here. Perfect, all A secondary schools. Okay, so basically so far we have finished our project. We have created dynamic dropdowns. We select primary over here, we get a drop down over here, we select C primary over here, we can keep continuing do this and it will keep on setting new things. Primary, secondary, secondary, B secondary, A secondary. Perfect, this works fine. Now what is not working fine is that if I delete this, we still have school over here. So we can write another functionality where if the edit value is null, then just set this also as null, right? So, but first of all, before that, you can see that we don't need, this is redundant, right? We don't need this. So we'll just delete all of this and we'll just write here as and event column equal to 3. Forgetting whether we have double and or single and in here. So it's JavaScript and operator. So it is this double ampersand, which is fine. Okay, great. So it will only run when the event column is 2. Actually, we don't want and, we want or. So for or, we have this. Okay. So it will only run if the event column is 2 or event column is 3, right? So let's come here and let's do this. Event column is primary, tran, perfect, and it ran. Nice. Great. So yeah. Now the second thing that I want us to look at is, because we are looking at only the header row and after that we are not using this drop down data anywhere. So we don't need to get the whole drop down data to begin with, right? We don't want the whole drop down data and save it somewhere. It's like a lot of use of memory and it increases the time for the code execution. So we do not want the drop down data. We also do not want then this range. The only thing that we want is the header row values, right? So for that, what we can do is we can go in our drop down sheet, we can get range, and our range is this, basically row 1. And so basically we want to start from row 1, we want to start from column 1, we want to read only one row, and we want to read till the last row of the sheet. So let's do that. So we want to start from the first row, we want to start from the first column, we want to read only one row, and we want to read till the last column. So dropdowns dot get last column dot get values. Now you know that we just saw that it returns a list of list. It will return a list inside of which there will be one more list with these values from here till here, right? So that means we want to select the 0th element from there, right? And now if everything is fine, this should not create any issues. Select prime, sorry, if we select secondary over here, it works fine. See, so we have reduced that unnecessary piece of code where we were getting the whole data range and then we were storing the entire data in somewhere. We don't need that. We only needed the header row. That's all, nothing else. Great. Now coming to the second thing that I talked about, deleting, basically if this is empty, I want this to be empty as well. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to then check whether this is null or not, because if this is going to be null, then I don't want to run this code, right? If this is null, then I don't want to set a drop down over here, right? So let's check this one more thing. If event value is not null, only then I want to run all of this. Okay, let's indent this for better readability. If it is not null, only then I want to do this. Otherwise, what do I want to do? I want to basically make this empty. Okay, great. So that means we will go into our data sheet dot get range, and the range will be where the event is occurring, the row. So event row, event column plus 1, because it will be in the, if I delete something here, I want the next column to be emptied out. Event column plus 1 dot set value, and I want to set value as blank, right? Okay, and I want to do this as in, like, as an else condition for this. If this is null, sorry, if the event value is not null, then run this, else do this, right? So that's what I want to do. Okay, let's see whether this works or not. If I delete here, it deleted this as well. Amazing. If I delete something here, it deleted this as well. Perfect. Okay, so this is our setting dynamic dropdowns, and now the delay is also very small. So if you select primary over here, comes here quite quickly, just wait 1 second, but you can keep continuing with your work because it will keep setting the dropdown as you're continuing your work. So you can see that I have the dropdowns already over here set up. Okay, perfect. I hope this was helpful. Anyway, if you have any feedback, suggestions, please drop those down in the comments section, and also let me know your experience doing this. Yeah, I hope it was it was a good experience. I know the first time it might be a little jarring, but once you do this one time, and the second time it'll just become simpler and simpler. Anyway, take care folks, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.